There's a scene in the original Shrek where the joke is that ogres are fat, ugly, and that's the whole point of why they're lovable. Pitch that to a studio executive today and watch what happens to the meeting. It wouldn't even get just a polite no. It would get a list of notes. Make sure the joke isn't read as making fun of body size. Consider whether ugly is the right word to build an entire franchise's emotional thesis around. Add a line somewhere that clarifies Shrek doesn't think he's ugly, he just looks different, and different is beautiful too. By the time the notes are addressed, the joke that made millions of people feel something real about being told they were too much or not enough has been smoothed into something that offends nobody and moves nobody either. That's the actual argument here. Not that Shrek couldn't get made today because the jokes are too edgy or the references are dated. The argument is that the specific kind of bluntness the film needed, the willingness to say ugly and mean it, to let a character be genuinely undesirable by the world's standards, and make that the whole emotional foundation rather than something to quickly resolve, doesn't survive the development process a major animated film goes through now. This isn't a complaint about sensitivity, by the way. People are going to hear this and assume it's another video about how everyone got too soft and ruined everything. That's not really what's happening here. The development process changed because the stakes changed, because the thing being protected got bigger. Those are two very different problems, and only one of them is actually interesting. Here's what actually happened in 2001 that doesn't happen anymore. DreamWorks was the underdog, and they weren't really protecting a legacy yet. They had something to prove against Disney, and proving it meant being willing to say the thing Disney would never say. Princesses are kind of a scam. Happy endings get sold to people who don't actually get them. Beauty is a system, not a fact, and the system is rigged from the start. A studio with nothing to lose can afford to be honest like that. A studio defending a billion-dollar brand usually can't. And every major animated studio right now, DreamWorks included, is exactly that studio with everything to lose. The underdog won, and what made it dangerous in the first place was usually the first thing to go. It's worth saying, this isn't unique to DreamWorks either. It happens to every studio, every band, every creator who makes something honest while nobody's watching closely, and then has to figure out what honesty even means once millions of people are watching, and a publicly traded company is counting on the next one performing. The constraint isn't talent. The constraint is what gets to happen once something becomes valuable enough that protecting it starts to matter more than whatever made it good in the first place. And you can actually watch this happen in real time. That Shrek 5 trailer everyone tore apart last week is the proof sitting right in front of us. People kept saying it felt safe, smoothed out, like something designed in a boardroom instead of something somebody actually needed to say. And they were right about the feeling, even if they pointed at the wrong cause. It's not that the animation got worse or the jokes got lazier. It's that DreamWorks isn't the underdog with something to prove anymore. They're the brand with something to protect. And you can feel that shift in your bones before you can even explain it, which is exactly what happened in those comment sections within the first hour. The trailer wasn't bad because the studio lost talent or stopped caring. It was bad, or at least felt bad, because the entire incentive structure that produced the original film doesn't exist anymore. Nobody at DreamWorks in 2026 is trying to prove anything to Disney. They're trying not to lose what they already built. And that one difference, or maybe it's more than one difference, changes everything a studio is willing to risk saying. Now think about Fiona's curse for a second, because this is where it actually gets uncomfortable. The whole twist of the first film is that Fiona turns into an ogre at night, and the curse only breaks if her true love sees her as she really is. And the film's answer, the actual emotional climax of the entire story, is that she stays an ogre, forever, permanently. The version of her that's big and green and not conventionally beautiful by any fairy tale standard is framed as the real one, the one worth loving, the one that gets the happy ending. Try writing that today and see how far you get before someone in the room asks if you're saying the only way for a woman to be lovable is to look a certain way, or if you're saying beauty itself is somehow shameful, or if the ending reads as a punishment dressed up as empowerment. Both readings would show up in the notes, probably on the same page, because the original film wasn't trying to make a clean statement about beauty standards. It was just being honest about a specific feeling, that being loved for the version of yourself you hide is better than being loved for the version you perform, And honesty like that doesn't fit neatly into a single approved message anymore. Modern animated films want a message you can put on a poster. The original Shrek wanted something messier than that. It wanted you to sit with the discomfort of a happy ending that doesn't look like a happy ending is supposed to look. That's a much harder thing to greenlight now than it was in 2001, and it has nothing to do with talent or budget or how good the writers are. It has to do with what a studio is willing to risk sitting in a theater seat next to a confused parent. There's also the matter of who exactly the original film was making fun of because it wasn't being subtle about it. Duloc is Disneyland, the little theme park, welcome song, the perfectly uniform buildings, the mascot wave. All of it is a direct visual joke aimed at the most powerful entertainment company on earth. And the film didn't just borrow the aesthetic, it built an entire villain around the idea that this kind of manufactured perfection is something to escape rather than something to want. Farquaad isn't just a tyrant, he's a parody of brand control itself, someone obsessed with everything looking exactly the way it's supposed to look. DreamWorks could make that joke in 2001 because they had nothing to do with Disney and no reason to protect anyone's feelings. Over there, try making that same joke now in an industry where DreamWorks, Universal, Disney, and basically every major studio left are tangled up in distribution deals and theme park partnerships and streaming agreements that all touch each other in some way. The competitive landscape that let one studio openly mock another studio's whole business model barely exists anymore. Everybody's a little bit in business with everybody else, and that tends to soften exactly the kind of joke that needed real distance to land. There's also a simpler version of this. 25 years ago, mocking the fairy tale industrial complex felt like an underdog taking a swing at the king of the hill. DreamWorks doing it now, after Shrek became one of the most successful animated franchises of all time, doesn't read as rebellion anymore. It reads as a brand making fun of brands, which lands completely differently. And most people can feel the difference even if they can't explain why. And then there's everything happening underneath the kids' movie that technically isn't for kids at all. The gingerbread man getting interrogated like he's in a war film. The torture imagery played completely straight for a laugh. Pinocchio's whole underwear subplot. The big bad wolf in grandma's bed being treated as a punchline rather than something anyone questions twice. None of that was written with 5-year-olds in mind. It was written for the parents sitting next to them. The ones who'd appreciate a joke that was a little too dark or a little too knowing to belong in a children's film. And DreamWorks just let it live there anyway, without smoothing it into something safer. That instinct doesn't really survive in family animation now, not because writers got less clever, but because the entire model shifted toward inoffensive on both ends of the room at once. A joke has to clear the kid, and the parent, and the brand, and the eventual streaming algorithm that's going to recommend it to other families, and somewhere in that chain, the genuinely strange or uncomfortable bit gets flagged and quietly removed. What's left is funny, in a much safer, much more forgettable way. So here's the actual punchline, and it's not really about jokes or curses, or what a studio executive would flag in a notes call. Shrek got made because nobody at DreamWorks in 2001 was protecting anything yet. They had nothing to lose, so they told the truth about something that mattered, that the world's approved version of a happy ending leaves most people out, and that the people it leaves out deserve a story too. That honesty is the entire reason the film still means something 25 years later, not the donkey jokes, not the pop culture references, the honesty underneath all of it. Honesty like that only really survives in places that don't have anything to protect yet. Once a character turns into IP that $50 million depends on, that honesty is usually the first thing to go, sanded down slowly through notes and focus groups until what's left looks like Shrek, but doesn't actually risk anything Shrek risked. That's why the new trailer felt the way it felt. Not because anyone working on it doesn't care. It's that the specific freedom that only belongs to something with nothing left to lose just isn't there anymore. And DreamWorks, whether they want to admit it or not, has a whole lot to lose now. The original Shrek could never get made today, not because we've gotten too sensitive, and not because nobody's brave enough. It's because the conditions that let something that honest slip through the system only exist once, right before everyone realizes how much money is sitting inside it. After that, every version is just trying not to lose what the first one risked everything to say.